Okay, Luke 19, verse 1, where Jesus comes into Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see Jesus, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed into a sycamore tree to see him. Since Jesus was coming that way, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. Now, how awesome is that? You're a stranger in the town, or you see a stranger in the town, and you hear these big things about him, and all of a sudden he calls you out by name. How many of you today got called out by Jesus by name? Woke you up this morning and said, you know what? I want you to come to my house and worship me, so I can give you the things that you need in your life. Zacchaeus had never met God until now. And he had all the things in his life. Because that's the thing about people nowadays. They say, why does God bless people that don't know God? And why does the people that know God, that love God, he don't bless them? Well, that's because you're looking at the wrong blessings in life. You think blessings is money, a big house, a fancy car. No, that's not a blessing. That's just an object of this world. And that's what Zacchaeus says here, is he tells Jesus, I will give half of my money, wealth, to the poor. Just like that. Just by meeting Jesus, being called out by name. Because he's a tax collector, and tax collectors are not liked in that day. Because they're collecting money from a country that rules over you and gives it to them. So you don't even see where your money's going. That's like nowadays, if you're paying taxes to Russia, there's some guy come up here and get money from you and send it over there. You know, you're not going to be fond of this guy because now he's taking your money. But the thing is, though, is Zacchaeus is blessed. And when Jesus says, Zacchaeus, come down immediately, he didn't climb down that tree. He jumped off of it. You know why? Because Jesus called him by name. He knows our name. Isn't that just so beautiful? That he knows you. He knows who you are by name. You know how many times you meet people and they can't remember your name? You might do something for them and they don't remember your name. But Jesus knows your name. And he calls you by name, not just Zacchaeus, but who else did he call by name? Saul. He called Saul out. What was Saul? Saul was a guy that persecuted Christians. And he called him out by name. He knew he was a bad guy, and he knew his name. So he has that book of eternity with our names written in it. But it's up to us on how we're going to get there, like Zacchaeus did. He automatically said, you know what? I don't need all this money. I'm going to give half of it. Anybody I wronged, if you think I wronged you, I want to give you back 4 times what I wronged you. Because he was not of this world. He did not look at the blessing of having this money as being a blessing, more of a curse. Now, if you flip over here to James 4:4. In James 4:4, this is saying, here's what it is. It says, you adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred toward God? Anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you think Scripture says, with Without a reason, the Spirit he caused to live in us envious intensely. But he gives us more grace. This is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. That's a prophecy. That's a prophecy written in the Old Testament. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. You know who humble is? You know who humble is? Humble is the people that got out of their beds this morning and said, you know what? I'm going to go spend my Sunday morning worshiping God. I'm going to take my time to go get up, get dressed, and wash my face off. Let's keep those body parts out. But wash myself off and come to church and worship God because I am humble. Proud people are laying in their beds right now thinking Sunday's about them. Sunday's my day to relax. Sunday's my day to go fishing. Sunday's my day to do what I want to do. Pride is in you. And it's up to you to listen to it. It's up to you to decide, who am I proud in? Am I proud in knowing God and loving God? Am I proud of myself that I accomplished nothing in this world but hurting people by my actions because I'm selfish? But I humble myself. That thing was written 2,000 something years ago, and it still applies to today. Now, Matthew 16:26. Right here, Matthew 16:26, yes. What good will it be for a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? Or what can a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell the truth, some of you standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man in his kingdom. Now, what good is it to gain the world and to lose your soul? Is your soul worth that brand new pickup that you treasured, that you wished you had? Is your soul worth all the money that you can make, all the money you can have? No, you can't take it with you. When you die, you go come into this world as you go out of this world. Is what I used to hear all the time. But I told y'all before, I used to think that was when you leave this earth, you go out the way you came in, but that's not true. Because when you leave this earth, the only thing that you will take with you is what? Who you are. What you become in this world. If you were a giving person that gave your time, your effort to God, he will give back to you. But if you're a person that you took from this world, you took God's time, you took God's effort, the life he's given you, and you used it for yourself to gain what you wanted in this world, what you think you need, then you forfeited your soul. You forfeited it to hell. Zacchaeus, he knew that he was longing something in his life. All of us are longing something in our life. But it's up to us to find it. We have to do it by working towards our relationship with God. If you have one relationship you want to work on the rest of your life, work on it with God. Because this lifetime flies by so quickly that If you were Zacchaeus and God called you by name, if he woke you up this morning and said, Tom, Christina, come to church. You know what? I want to go to church. I want to take this Sunday and I'm going to give to God what is God. And there is coming up there and worshiping him, not sitting on the couch, worshiping that television, that big 8-inch TV you got, watching some sporting event or some fishing show or whatever, but worshiping God, coming here and learning his word and taking his word outside of this church to spread with other people so you can call people by name. Because one day, God's going to call you by name. And it's up to the end result. If you're going to be a Zacchaeus and say, hey, God, take half of my money. Because I'm not saying being rich is wrong. It's not. There ain't nothing wrong with being rich. It's how you use it and how you gained it. Did you gain it? Like a lot of these false preachers are doing nowadays, giving comforting messages. Because I want to pack the pews with people. I want to make them feel good so that way that collection plate overfills. You know, I don't want to tell them how to save their soul. I want to tell them make them feel good. Jesus didn't tell Zacchaeus that. You know what? The night when he went to Zacchaeus' house, you know what he probably took with him? He probably took Matthew. You know why? Matthew was a tax collector also. And so he took Matthew with him. And Matthew probably told Zacchaeus, he said, you know what, dude? He said, you made a good decision by following him. And he announced it publicly, too. Because that's what we do. When we find Christ, we have to announce it publicly to people. Because whereas Jesus, he was crucified publicly. And Matthew told him, you know what? This is the life that you live now, and this is the life that you got to live now from now on. Because he could probably relate to it. And that's what you want, is somebody that can relate to you. And last message will be in Revelations, and that is 21:8. In Revelations says, but the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexual immoral, those who practice magic arts, idolatry, and all liars, their place will be in a fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. That's pretty harsh. And that's what's one I hear, the idolatry. I've covered this several times. About this world today is where, you know, back in the old days, they made false idols. Bel, Baal, whatever you call him. You know, they made these false idols that they worshipped other than God. And that's one sin that God will not forget, is blasphemy. Worshiping another God. There's no God to be put in front of him. Now, a lot of people nowadays, like I say, are worshiping themselves. That's the worst kind of, you know, it's all about them. And Zacchaeus is a prime example. Is when you make haste. Are you going to jump out of that tree when God calls you? Or are you going to make haste? Are you going to say, you know what? I'm going. And that's what we need to do, is act like every Sunday, every Wednesday, every time we get a chance to mention God to people, we need to make haste to it. But one thing I've learned too is when you start talking, God, these things are not like me today. One thing I learned about learning about the Bible is when you find a non-Christian or somebody that's kind of hard, that's been burned by the Bible or something, because there are people that use this right here to hurt people. and tell them lies. They can look it up in here, because you can pick this thing apart to make it look like your words are true and manipulate people. But that's your words. That's not God's word. God doesn't. But if you find some non-believer, there's a deal called 80-20. Let them do 80% of the talking, and you do 20% of the listening, and that way you can help heal their hearts. Because that's what Zacchaeus got. His heart was longing. His heart was longing for something, and it wasn't money, because he had money. And most people think if we were rich, we wouldn't long for money. But Zacchaeus, he came to this crowd, and it said he was short in stature, and he had to push his way through it, and he couldn't see, so he just climbed the sycamore tree. And Jesus knew what was longing in his heart, like he knows what's longing in our heart right now. He knows each and every one of us and all our desires and all our weaknesses and all the stuff that corrupts us in this world that we look to fill that void. So if you come across a non-believer, somebody that hasn't believed, try to slowly ease them into it. Don't just ram it down their throat, but teach them slowly. Because a lot of people, like one of the main questions are, a lot of people ask me sometimes is, what about, God just is going to judge everybody. What about those people that never heard of God? Well, the quickest answer I heard to answer that question is let God worry about that. That's not for me to worry about. That's what what I need to worry about is my relationship with God. And work on that. And starting today. Because you're not promised tomorrow. We could walk out that door and get hit by a bolt of lightning. Not more lightning. Hey, you could die of a heat stroke pretty quickly. And then you ain't got tomorrow. So let's start with today and work on it today. And be a Zacchaeus and rush to God. Thank you all.